Tina Smith joining us today. Senator, it's great to talk to you. Let's start with what we're expecting in the Senate today, particularly around the debt ceiling. When do we expect the vote, and how optimistic are you?
Well, the Democrats are not going to allow the government to run out of money. We're going to avert the shutdown. We're going to do that today, I hope. And we are not going to allow our country to default on our debt. This is just a ridiculous situation here. Yesterday in the banking committee, I listened to Republican after Republican talk about the debt ceiling and basically say it's up to the Democrats to resolve this issue in the most partisan of terms. And then, as was just reported, we attempted to move a bill to raise the debt ceiling, and we were blocked. So this is not just about a partisan battle in Washington. For the United States to default on its obligations would be a catastrophe. And it would have direct impacts on people in Minnesota and around the country. It would mean payments don't get made. It would mean that interest rates would go up. It would almost certainly push our country into a recession, just as we are still trying to recover from COVID. It would be, as an economist said earlier today, it would be default by stupidity if the Republicans continue to block this. We cannot let that happen.
And we heard from Jenny Yellen talking about it being economic catastrophe, too. But Senator, yesterday in that Senate Banking Committee testimony, we did hear you ask about a few things. And Republicans right now, it does seem like they're trying to conflate future spending with spending that's already been approved and needs to, basically you need to raise the debt ceiling to even allow that to happen as it should. But you were looking ahead to maybe spending that would be pretty helpful for American workers right now, still dealing with the pandemic. And you asked about child care. And really increasing the spending on that front. Talk to me about why that's such an important issue when you talk to constituents and what you're hearing right now when it comes to the state of the American worker.
I have heard from employers, I've heard from parents, I've heard from childcare providers that there is a crisis in our childcare system in this country. It fundamentally isn't working for anybody. We are focusing on a worker shortage, which we see in many sectors around the country. And one of the reasons for this is because parents aren't able to come back to work, especially women, because there is such a shortage of childcare. Elizabeth Warren and Patty Murray and I and others have been working hard to get direct support to increase the supply of childcare providers in this country, and also to help make childcare more affordable. When it costs a family roughly the same amount to send their infant to a high quality daycare as it does to send their 18-year-old to college, at a time when many families are just starting out, we have a significant problem with affordability. So this is one of the reasons why we're fighting so hard for this Build Back Better budget that I was asking Secretary Yellen about yesterday, because it includes childcare, which is really like economic infrastructure for families and businesses.
So let's talk specifically about that reconciliation bill. You've got one part of your party right now saying that there's no infrastructure bill without this additional $3.5 trillion bill. And yet others who are saying, like the president, that let's try to get the infrastructure bill passed first. Which side do you stand on, and why is it important to get these two in tandem?
Well, these two bills, the Build Back Better budget, the plan that is within reconciliation, and the infrastructure bill are all part of the same plan. That's how I see it. Of course, it's extremely important that we make long needed investments in roads and bridges and in broadband and improving, getting rid of lead pipes for drinking water. That's extremely important. The rest of the package, though, is also really important. It is about lowering costs for the things that Americans pay for every day, like prescription drugs and like childcare. It is about doing something to address the significant shortage of housing that we have in this country. So I want to see these two bills go together. The sequencing of them is something that we're fighting about right now. I think what we ought to be focused on is what we want to get done in these bills, which I should say, by the way, are broadly popular with the American public, including something I've been focused on quite a bit, which is to clean up our power sector so that we get to clean electricity as we address the crisis of climate change in our country.
Yeah, specifically the proposals for a clean energy standard in place. Can you speak to the importance of the timing of passing this right now? You've got the president on the one hand pushing for this domestic agenda, and yet he's going into an international climate meeting on November 1st, essentially saying the U.S. is leading the way. Can U.S. stake that claim? Can the U.S. stake that claim if they don't get this bill passed?
Well, if we get the Clean Electricity Plan passed, which would get our power sector to 80% clean power in 10 years, if we include with that incentives for building out clean power, including strategies like carbon capture and storage, if we get past the big push for electrifying our transportation sector with electric vehicles, then the president can go to Glasgow and say with strength that the United States is leading. And this is important for our world leadership, but it is so important because we want to put the United States on the forefront of this clean energy transition where we can lead or we can follow. And if we are leading, we're going to be building out the supply chains. We're going to be creating the jobs. We're going to be having creating the innovation, the technological innovation that's going to keep us on the forefront. So this is the way that we need to position the president for Glasgow, but it also is what we need to do to position our economy and our country for success in the next 30, 40, 50 years.
And Senator, it was interesting to hear you talking about childcare in that hearing. Elsewhere, we saw some fireworks from some of your peers on the Democratic side, specifically Senator Elizabeth Warren talking about not supporting Jay Powell for renomination in his role as the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Specifically citing a couple things. Mostly she took issue with kind of rolling back some of the regulations there, making the system less safe, in her words, calling him a dangerous man. As a Democrat, too, who's on the Senate Banking Committee, who's going to be weighing in on his renomination, where do you lie in that debate, and would you support him staying chair?
Well, Senator Warren came to the Senate because she cares so passionately about making sure that we hold big banks accountable, that big banks are working are working for everybody in this country. As I evaluate the president's nominee, who is yet to be named, I'm going to be looking at my own criteria. Certainly, I want to know that we have a Fed chair that is going to be strong on bank regulation. I also want a Fed chair that is going to be strong on monetary policy, who fully appreciates the power of getting to full employment as a way of making sure that our economy is working for everybody in this country and not just the rich and powerful. And so as the president makes his nominee known, that's the criteria that I'll be using, in addition to other really important factors like climate change and addressing the systemic risk of climate change. I'll be looking at those factors as I decide whether or not to support the president's nominee.
So, Senator, those criteria that you just laid out right now, do you think that the Fed chair meets those criteria right now?
Well, again, I'm going to wait until I know who the president is putting forward. I will say that I have respected Chair Powell's focus on getting us to full employment, and I also think that he has taken a measured approach on questions of inflation, which I respect as well. But I'll wait and see who the president nominates, and then make a decision.
Okay, we hope to get you to weigh in on that when that happens. Senator Tina Smith, it's good to talk to you today. Really appreciate the time.